and set your spirit free. 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 Set your spirit free.
Hello and welcome to Free Spirit. Today we come to you from the beautiful Stillness Manor in Tokai, Cape Town. Seeking to provide her clients with a space where they could discover and express their feelings and deeper emotions, coordinator and counsellor at the Bubbling Well Centre, Carolyn Fletcher, combines trauma and grief counselling with Tai Chi and meditation. Let's find out more.
About 9 years ago, I was living in London, and at the time I really did believe I had it all. But inside I felt really, really empty. I was permanently restless, agitated, living on a diet of cigarettes, alcohol, late nights, stress. What changed really was that I connected back to my source, and that whole connection really changed my life. I became more and more inspired. In fact, I became so inspirited that I walked out of my corporate job with my big fat paycheck. I walked out of all the alleged security, and so the Bubbling Well was born. Spoiling yourself was always associated with a lot of guilt. What changed that?
I think very much an understanding of what I'm doing here. I think that's been the most important shift is I've actually learned to focus on things that are far more important and moving the inside as opposed to the outside. And I feel like a more beautiful person.
I've counselled family members if a certain member of the family is terminally ill. I've also counselled women who've been through abortions and miscarriage, people with relationship issues, and I've also helped a lot of people with issues of obsessive-compulsive disorder and depression. I think it's key to realize that this is not my center, and I, Carolyn, do not do the healing. This is a shared enterprise between Divine Spirit, myself, and the people that come here to seek a greater understanding of themselves.
What I've learned from Carolyn is basically we're here to be the best people, and we're all wonderful people, but unfortunately everything that's happened in your life in the past influences the way you look at life. So it's getting back to the fact that you're in control of your own life and not waiting for outside influences to change your life, to change it from within.
Within my counselling, I believe that people should actually learn to help themselves. So I teach the modalities of Tai Chi Chuan and meditation and regression in order for people to learn for themselves to actually start helping themselves through their own process. Tai Chi for me has actually changed my life. First, it transformed my physical addictions. It was never about giving up cigarettes and giving up alcohol. It was about re-educating or redirecting that energy. And slowly but surely, the more Tai Chi I did, all that stuff just fell away. I'd like to go back into the corporate world and teach Tai Chi in the mornings, like they do in the East. I'm just waiting for someone who believes that actually a calm, focused, unified workforce can only really contribute to the bottom line. We get bombarded all day long with TV and radios and cars and sounds and music and people, and all day long we take in, and it's expanding and expanding and expanding. So meditation for me is a time where I can actually consciously shrink that energy. I have to meditate in between every client. It's important for me to clear off the energy of the previous client. So for me, it's also not only a time to balance my energy, it's a time for me to actually reconnect with Source, recenter myself, and give my clients the best that I can. We're looking again at codependence, what you were looking at. So how are things going? How are things going at home?
Well, our house is physically broken still.
Is it?
Yeah, we just refinished the kitchen. My wife, she had some issues she wanted to sort out. And it turned out to be I was almost the root cause of the problem, so I needed to be there too. As a conservative Afrikaner, I always thought that going for counselling and getting help is, it's for sissies, man. I mean, you don't cry, you don't do anything that you conservative Afrikaans, you don't ask help, you just go ahead, steamroll ahead. And hey, man, I was so wrong. I first thought, I'm not going to say anything for this woman. She's asking me questions that's really getting to me, it's personal. But I analysed every question after the session, and I realised that she's actually helping me. It's amazing how by just talking about it, admitting to it, helps you. And for those guys who sit in a bar and sit with their chummies and talking bar language, I think you're the guys that needs help. Because I was there, I did that.
If I could create a motto of the Bubbling Well, it would be know yourself. A lot of people come in here with many, many labels. I am an alcoholic. I am depressed. So my first job really is to take those labels off and look them in the eye and go, who are you more than that? And then they'll say, well, I'm a dad, I've got these roles, I've got these functions, and I'll go, and who are you more than that? And it goes up and up and up, and some of them look at you blankly initially, but they get it in the end.
I was brought up in a Catholic home, and then I found, when I finished school, I spent a lot of my 20s pretending I was an atheist because it was a good rebound from the Catholic sense. And then in my 30s, looking inward instead of outward became very important to me. Not trying to find an answer in somebody else's teachings or a book, but to actually just be silent and try and allow for the answer to come to yourself, which is basically how I do things now. I'll take a moment, breathe in, and just wait for the answer to come to me. And I truly believe that we have the sense of everything in us. We have the knowledge of all is contained within our bodies and in our cells and in our spirit or our soul or whatever you want to call it. And we can find the answers to everything within us.
Fertility astrology is the hardest predictive astrology of all. Using complicated mathematical astrological charts, Nikki Alsop helps women who are struggling to fall pregnant identify their most fertile days. In fact, she's so accurate that many doctors in Cape Town are sending their patients to her for consultations.
Astrology is a combination of a science and an art. It is symbolic, and it is a way of understanding the world around you using symbolism that is meaningful to you, and you find meaning in it. And for me, it's a way of life now. It's not just a hobby. It's not something that I just do part-time. I came to astrology, I think, out of a deep desire to understand what was happening in my life. Obviously, being the age that I am, I've had a few crises of my own. And when you get to that point, I think you do ask questions and you do wonder about spirituality. And when you are having a hard time, you do wonder what is the lesson in this? What is the meaning? What does it mean to be here? A friend of mine gave me the number of Rod Suskin, and I went to him for a reading. Now, I had learned how to do the tarot. I had been to many psychics before, and what impressed me about astrology was it was so sensitive to timing that he was able to describe the process of my life and give it timing. And I thought, this is really practical. This is not just like going to a psychic. This is not just a feeling. And so I started his 3-year diploma course. After studying with Rod, I embarked on a long process of self-studying. I read a lot, and I saw a lot of clients. And as it happened, I had a fantastic run of pregnancies predictions that were stunningly correct. We have spoken quite a lot about that the moon in fall in Scorpio. It's been a very, very difficult moon. Yeah, so word got out that I could predict pregnancy. So instead of getting the normal natural pregnancies, I then got all the problem children. So I then had to deal with people who were having difficulties. And I started noticing obviously similarities in their charts with the same sort of difficulties. And so I developed over time a very particular method of looking at fertility in an astrological chart. A chart is essentially a blueprint of one's life, if you like, or it's a map. And it's a psychological, it's a medical, and it's a karmic, if you like, blueprint. I can see the psychological underpinning why somebody isn't falling pregnant. I can see their makeup, I can see what's disturbing them, their fears, their anxieties, and their needs and desires in the chart from a psychological perspective, which is very interesting because that's often where some of these supposed infertility issues stem from, obviously from that psychological background. But I can also see medical markers in the chart. So I can see the condition of the body, and I can see where the physical difficulties are.
The reason why I came to Nikki is that she is the expert. She's had a great success rate. She has an innate understanding of the subject, a great relationship with her clients, and I feel very comfortable coming to her. I don't feel exposed in any way.
The process, if you would like to consult any astrologer, but particularly myself as a fertility astrologer, is to ring me up, email me, telephone me, and give me your birth, time, date, and place. I look at the chart, I look at the psychological underpinning, I look at the medical diagnosis of the chart, and then I look at the lucky times over the next year or so that they really want to try. They come because they don't understand why it's not happening for them, even though they're spending huge amounts of money on fertility treatment, and they want to know, well, when is my next lucky time? Now, the thing about astrology is that everybody has about 2, maybe 3 lucky times a year, and if you were going to spend 18,000 Rand on a IVF treatment, wouldn't you rather do it on a lucky cycle rather than a bad luck cycle?
I must have gone to see her in June, July, and then she looked forward, obviously, and the really sort of positive times were September and October.
The reason why she wasn't falling pregnant was very vague and very hard to see, and you can't blame the doctors or the fertility clinic. It's just her own body that sometimes presents a situation that looks one way, but it isn't actually that way. And I think that once we spoke a bit about some of her psychological factors underlying the chart, and once we were quite clear on her physical condition and what was happening in her chart, it's almost like her mind then adjusted her body and came in an alignment of some sort, where the very next treatment she had, it worked.
There is no guarantee, and I'm not saying that she's going to be able to be successful with everybody, but it's certainly well worth visit, and I would highly recommend her.
I just want to give each and every client what they came to hear, and it's given to me by God or a higher power or whoever you want in that moment. I mean, you can get an embryo to a blastocyst stage and you can implant it, and it's got between 24 to 36 hours to decide to take. And that's the moment of conception. So it doesn't matter how much technology, how much astrology, and how many fertility drugs you throw at it. At the end of the day, God still speaks.
Next week, as Yehuda Tagar explains the healing benefits of psychophonetics. We also chat spirituality with television personality Mpho Sono, and we get the real deal on breatharian Chris Schneider. Until then, may your week be filled with love and laughter.